Welcome, Kemosabe. I am Detective Lloyd Gross, and this is the Strangler Revealed episode part 1 of the Anti-Strangling Task Force. This is the moment you've been waiting for, the reveal of the Scranton Strangler. If you've seen the previous episode, you'll know that I was prompted to search for the Scranton Strangler in Season 1, Episode 1. And this was because of a clue given to us by Toby, where he says, I would start at the beginning, but I think I need to go further back. So I did go further back to Season 1, Episode 1, The Pilot. And in my mind, I said to myself, I'm going to accuse Dwight Schrute. And this is what I saw. You can see right now 2 moments in the intro sequence that are incredibly important. The first is Dwight flipping his tie around his neck, followed by Ryan lifting up his bag. The flipping of the tie around Dwight's neck is a symbolic secret sign that he is the Scranton Strangler. It is symbolic of a cord being wrapped around the neck as in a strangling scenario. The following shot of Ryan lifting his bag is positioned to us as though it's a bag of evidence, prompting us to look here. Now, I should briefly mention, guys, that the entire intro sequence is filled with clues, and that'll be covered in another episode. But for the Strangler Revealed episodes, we're only going to be covering the tie flip and the lifting of the bag. In part 1, this episode, we're primarily focused on the bag, and in part 2, we're going to focus in on the tie flip. So we're going to follow the bag and see where the clues lead us. Ryan lifting his bag comes from Season 1, Episode 5, Basketball. So the basic synopsis of the episode is Michael has arranged a basketball game with the warehouse staff. It was his idea, and we can posit the reasons why he organized the game. Perhaps he just wanted to feel cool or wanted an opportunity to socialize, but it was Michael's idea to arrange this basketball game. Now, the raising of the bag is from the opening scene of Season 1, Episode 5, Basketball.
Hey, you ready? All right. Secret sign. Hey, Ryan. Very good. Excellent. Michael. Today, at lunchtime, we are going to be playing the warehouse staff in a friendly little game of basketball. My idea.
Now, the purpose of Ryan lifting his bag in the intro sequence, which constitutes a part of the secret sign, was to bring us to this scene and to this episode. So Ryan's job is done. We're not so much interested anymore in what's in Ryan's bag as opposed to what's happening in this scene and what's happening in the rest of the episode. So Michael walks into the office. His newspaper seems to be unread, which would suggest it's still somewhat early morning. He is a little bit late compared to everybody else, but it doesn't seem as though he's arrived 3 hours late, just slightly late compared to everybody else. Now, when Michael walks in, we need to focus in on what he says. He walks in, shows Jim his bag, and says, "Secret sign."
Secret sign. Secret sign. Secret sign.
Now, it's a secret for two reasons. The first reason it's a secret sign is because the writers and the creators are trying to confirm to us that, yes, we have found the secret sign in the intro sequence. It's a confirmation that, yes, you have found the secret sign. But there's a second reason it's a secret sign, and it's a secret within the story of the episode. And specifically, it's a secret kept from Dwight. Now, it's revealed to us that it was a secret from Dwight in the following scene when Dwight appeals Michael's decision. And I'm going to touch on Dwight appealing the decision a little bit later in this episode, but this is the discussion that they have.
Ma'am, thank you, ma'am. Messages, please. Thank you.
Michael, could I talk to you for a second, please? Privately? In your office? I think I should be on the team.
No. And that's not me being mean, Dwight. That is based on your past behavior.
Oh, please.
When I let him come to my pickup
I apologize for that.
I vouched for you.
Michael,
I vouched for you in front of Todd Packer, Dwight. All right, here's what I'm going to do. The hand strikes and gives a flower. You are not going to play basketball.
Oh.
But I need somebody to come in and take over the holiday and weekend work calendar.
I can handle that.
Good. Excellent. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
Now, we find out that there was a basketball game in the past where Michael vouched for Dwight. It was Packer's pickup game, and something happened at this pickup game which basically made Michael write off Dwight for any basketball games ever again. It is because of this incident that Michael did not want under any circumstances for Dwight to play the basketball game. So Michael arranges the game with the other office staff as a secret from Dwight. He didn't want Dwight finding out because of this incident, so he arranges it in secret, which is why when he walks into the office, he shows his bag and says, "Secret sign." He did not want Dwight finding out about the game. So the people that Michael did tell was Jim, because Michael always wants to be besties with Jim. Ryan, because he's this young, cool, and sexy guy. Packer, because it's one of Michael's only real fake friends. Stanley, because he's black, he of course must be good at basketball. And then last but not least, Michael. He selects himself to be part of this team because basketball is a 5-player game, so we have Jim, Ryan, Packer, Stanley, and Michael. Those are the 5 that Michael selected to play in this basketball game. Now, we know that Michael selects Packer because of a deleted scene where he calls Packer to confirm his attendance. Let me show it to you now.
Oh, hey, you know what? I just wanted to remind you about the game today. 1 o'clock. Big game.
I can't make it.
No, you said you could, man. We're counting on you. You know, you're playing point guard.
I'm not coming.
No, hey, I mean, although it's just for fun, you know, we want...
Oh, God, honestly, stop whining. You only come to the pickup game once a year, you little bitch.
All right. Yep. Hey, okay, no problem. You know, best you can do. Hey, you know. Hey, good. Nice talking to you, too. All right, take care.
So as you can see, Packer ends up reneging on the game, and in the detailed analysis of this episode, I'm going to tell you why he reneges on the game. And this likely links into Packer's drink driving incident, but we'll touch on that another time. But Packer ends up reneging on the game and says that he's not going to come. So it's because of Packer cancelling his attendance that Michael is now forced to find an additional player. He walks out into the office and he considers a number of different people. He considers Phyllis, Kevin, Oscar, and for various reasons, either because they're unathletic or because in Oscar's case, he thinks Oscar being Mexican must be good at baseball. So it's not the right, you know, the stereotype doesn't fit in Michael's people that would be good at basketball, right? He considers various people, and although they volunteer themselves, Michael rejects them, and consequentially, he ends up allowing Dwight to play the basketball game. Now, to reiterate, the game was kept a secret from Dwight. This is the moment where Michael changes his mind, only because Packer cancels. Right, so he kept it a secret from Dwight. Packer cancels his attendance, and only because of that does Michael finally say, fine, Dwight, you can be on the basketball team. So one question that instantly arises is, how did Dwight find out about the basketball game to begin with if it was kept a secret from Dwight? Now, the only people who knew was Jim, Ryan, Packer, and Stanley. Now, in Jim's case, I think Jim would be unlikely to tell Dwight because he'd probably rather turn it into some sort of a prank. Ryan has just started his job in the office, so perhaps to stay on the good side of Michael, he would be hesitant to say something. Packer was not in the office, so it really comes down to Stanley, and I think based on how we understand Stanley's character, Stanley couldn't care less about this stupid basketball game. He couldn't care less about Michael's stupidity in general. So it's most likely, as Stanley enters the office, Dwight sees Stanley's bag of gym and basketball gear. He asks Stanley, and Stanley ends up telling him that there's a basketball game that Michael has arranged today. Now, I just want to briefly mention, it doesn't really matter who he found out from. It could be any one of these people that Dwight found out from. The point is, Dwight found out that morning from one of the people who brought in their gym bags, and I posit that it's most likely Stanley that he found out from. Now, once Dwight found out about the basketball game, Dwight's paranoias and insecurities would have immediately hit him. We see throughout the show, the moment that Dwight doesn't like a decision, he appeals it immediately. For example, when the merger happens and Andy starts, Dwight immediately runs into Michael's office to work out who is the higher ranking member. In the alliance, when Dwight is worried about layoffs, he doesn't even let Michael exit the toilet before he immediately hits him up for confirmation of the safety of his position from layoffs. Another moment where this is even made fun of is when Jim dresses up as Dwight.
Michael!
Oh, that's funny. Michael!
Right, and we see that moment where Jim goes, Michael, and then immediately what does Dwight say? Michael. So, we know throughout the series that Dwight is this almost petulant child mentality where the moment he doesn't like anything, he will appeal it straight away. He cannot wait. He's almost neurotic about it, right? Now, the appeal that we see in the second scene of this episode is that moment, albeit a toned down or tapered back version. And the reason it's probably tapered back is because of the camera crew. And you can actually see Dwight looking at the camera a little bit nervously. Perhaps he feels he's being judged, right? But that appeal that we saw by Dwight is the exact same as every other appeal that we've seen in the show. Now, what does this mean? That means that was the first moment that Dwight had to appeal the decision.
Ma'am, thank you, ma'am. Messages, please. Thank you.
Michael, could I talk to you for a second, please? Privately? In your office?
Had Dwight known about the game the day prior, this discussion would have happened the day prior. But Dwight finds out about the game that morning, most likely from one of the 5 that were invited or accepted into the team. And as I said, I posit that to be Stanley, right? And that's the first chance. Michael has just arrived into the office. He doesn't even let Michael check his messages, and he's immediately appealing the decision. That's critically important to understand. This is the first chance Dwight had to appeal the decision. Why? Because he found out that morning, and that's the first moment he had to approach Michael about it. So, Kemosabe, this is the question that we need to ask. If Dwight didn't know about the game until that morning, what the hell is in his bag, and where did it come from? Now, the contents of the bag are as follows: a pair of leather boots, a pair of sweatpants, wrist sweatbands, a World Anime Expo Philadelphia 2002 t-shirt, and a face guard. Now, where did they come from? Now, this is where the timing comes into it based on what time Michael entered the office. Michael seems to have entered the office only slightly late. Obviously, everybody else is already in the office, but his newspaper is unread. It doesn't seem as though Michael's come into the office 3 hours late. His newspaper is unread. He's only slightly late, probably sometime after 9 o'clock. Now, the game was scheduled for 1 p.m. Right, so he's not that late to the office. Now, there's only really 3 possibilities that I believe could explain the source of this bag. The first is that it came from Dwight's house. The second is that he quickly went to the mall to purchase some equipment. And the third is that he had it on site already, most likely in his vehicle, in his car. Now, we know that Dwight's house is 5 to 8 miles or 8 to 12 kilometers away from the office. And we find out that his house is that far away in the customer survey episode where Andy and Angela are organizing their wedding, and Angela says to Andy, any place within a 5 to 8 mile radius will do. And she's obviously referring to Schrute Farms.
But anything within a 5 to 8 mile radius is acceptable?
So we know his house is, somewhat within a reasonable distance. Could he have quickly gone home to pick up this equipment? Now, I don't think this is likely for a number of reasons. First of all, the equipment is inconsistent with Dwight's persona. Dwight takes the role very seriously. I mean, think of Belschnickel or a Cyclops and all the other characters that Dwight has dressed up as, right? Dwight will go all out for any outfit or any character that he dresses up as, right? So this outfit is actually inconsistent. I mean, obviously we have the face guard and the sweatbands, but we don't have a basketball singlet, we don't have basketball shorts or basketball shoes. This is the first issue, because obviously they had the pickup game in the past. Dwight was at the pickup game with Packer. So if he did have basketball gear from that particular time, we should actually see a more consistent outfit. And we're not actually seeing that here. But the second problem with Dwight having gone home is Dwight's neuroticism about never being late. Dwight is obsessed with one day becoming manager, so he never wants to do anything wrong that could possibly jeopardize his chances. And we see in the performance review episode, Dwight actually brags about having never been late. Now, when Jim convinces Dwight that it's Friday when it's actually Thursday, Dwight ends up coming late to the office once. And you can see this is completely stressed out Dwight, because he can't allow for any opportunity to arise that would make it appear as though he's late. Even if he wasn't late, he's not even willing to risk the appearance of coming late. So had he left in the morning to go home, find his basketball gear, and come back to the office, he would have risked Michael coming to the office and not seeing Dwight there. And this is simply unacceptable to Dwight. Any appearance or actually being late is simply unacceptable for Dwight. So I think it is unlikely that Dwight went home to pick up this gear. The second possibility is that Dwight went to the mall and purchased the gear. Now, we obviously have the same issue with time and the appearance of coming late, and we also have the same issue with the consistency of the outfit. If he went to the mall, where's the rest of the getup? Firstly, I don't think it's possible for him to have purchased the anime t-shirt at the mall. It's not 2002 anymore, so it was unlikely that he's able to purchase that. Plus, if he did go out to buy a basketball gear, why didn't he buy the singlet? Why didn't he buy the shorts? Why didn't he buy the shoes? Right, so we basically have the same problem with him having gone home or him having gone to the mall, which really leaves us to the third possibility, which is Dwight already had this equipment on site, most likely in his vehicle because of the size of the bag, and I posit it to the anti-strangling task force that this bag was in the trunk of his vehicle. So let me recap the series of events from the beginning to the end, and then we're going to follow the conclusion. Michael arranges an office basketball game. It was his idea. He invites Jim, Ryan, Packer, and Stanley. He does this secretly to prevent Dwight from finding out. He doesn't want Dwight to find out because of what happened at Packer's pickup game. Dwight finds out that morning, most likely from Stanley, as they're all bringing in their gym bags with their basketball gear. Dwight's neuroticism and insecurities kick in. He runs down to the trunk of his vehicle and retrieves this bag. So the question, Kemosabe, is this. If Dwight didn't know about the game until that morning, why does Dwight have leather boots, sweatpants, wrist sweatbands, an Anime Expo t-shirt, and a face guard in the trunk of his vehicle? The reason he has this equipment is because Dwight Schrute is the Scranton Strangler.
No, God! No, God, please,
The contents of the bag are consistent with the modus operandi of a professional strangler. Let's start with the face guard. The face guard is there to protect Dwight's tiny nose from his struggling victims. Over the course of Dwight's many murders and stranglings, his victims have struggled, with their first instinctual movement being to move their heads backwards to alleviate the pressure on their throat. In doing so, they would headbutt Dwight in the nose with the back of their heads, causing Dwight's nose to bleed and possibly even breaking his nose or close to breaking his nose. Now, the nosebleeds are critical to mention because there is a strong possibility that law enforcement has Dwight's DNA. It would simply take one of his victims to have gotten a strong enough hit on his nose. I mean, the nose bleeds relatively easily. The blood would be left on their hair, right? And that would be something that law enforcement could collect and ultimately test for DNA. So that's one thing we need to sort of bank in our important information vault. Right, but that's what the face guard is, guys. And that motion would ultimately lead to the back of their heads hitting Dwight in the nose. Right, so the face guard is there to protect his nose. Now, believe it or not, guys, we even get a kill count given to us in this episode. In the deleted scenes, Angela confronts Dwight about his mask, and this is what he says.
Is that really necessary?
I've almost had my nose broken 12 times.
I've almost had my nose broken 12 times. So by season 1, episode 5, not only do we have information around his modus operandi, we actually have an estimated kill count of at least 12 people. He tells us he's almost had his nose broken 12 times. This is a kill count. Now, the other thing I want to mention around the face guard, right, is not only does it provide us information around his modus operandi, it is a signifier of the perfecting of his modus operandi. One thing that serial killers do is every time they commit a murder, they try and work out how they can be more efficient or do it better the next time. And the one thing that this tells us is that Dwight has worked out that throughout all of his stranglings, a common collision that always happens is that his victim knocks him in the nose with the back of their head, right? So he's worked out, in order to protect my tiny nose, I need to have a face guard because 9 out of 10 times I'm gonna get hit in the nose. So the face mask is also indicative of the perfecting of his modus operandi. So that's the face guard, guys. It's to protect his nose. We get given a kill count, and we're also given a window into the methods used by Dwight in his stranglings. Now, the second thing I want to touch on is the wrist sweatbands. Now, there are ultimately 2 ways of strangling someone. A person can strangle someone with their bare hands. This is known as manual strangulation. And the second method is to use a ligature or a cord, and this is known as ligature strangulation. Now, there's good reasons to believe that Dwight's preferred method, not his only method, but his preferred method, is ligature strangulation. And we'll go into more detail into all of that throughout the series, right? But in a ligature strangulation scenario, there are ultimately 3 ways that someone can handle the cord or rope. The first is to simply hold the rope or cord in the grip of your hands. The second option is to sort of wrap the cord around the palms or fingers of your hands. And the third option is to wrap the cord around your wrists. Now, we've done an experiment here to test the leverage and tension of each method, because in the theme of Dwight perfecting his modus operandi, we should assume that he's also perfected the cord brandishing method. Now, in the first method of holding it in the grip of his hands, you can see that we don't have much rigidity. There seems to be quite a bit of give in the hands and the wrists. We also risk the cord actually slipping out of your grip in this particular scenario, should the victim be strong enough to pull the cord out of your hands. So I think it's very unlikely that this is the method used. Now, the second method is to wrap the cord around the palms of your hands or your fingers. We actually see this method sort of referenced a number of times throughout the show. In the costume contest episode, you can see that Dwight has wrapped the cord sort of around the palms of his hands, and in his left hand, he's wrapped it around his two fingers. Now, based on this image, I also think it's unlikely that this is the method used. You would ultimately put too much tension around the fingers, and I believe this method would actually risk injury to himself, especially considering how much tension is needed. There is slightly more tension and rigidity than the first method, but there's still a decent amount of give in this example as well. So I don't believe this is the perfected method. Which brings us to the final option, which is that he wraps the cord around his wrists. And as you can see in the experiment that we've done, the amount of rigidity and tension that one is able to exert with this method is significantly greater than the first two. If you want to try this experiment at home, guys, do it, and you'll see it makes a massive difference. So in the theme of perfecting his modus operandi, this is the method that Dwight uses. And that's what brings us back to the wristbands. The wristbands are there to protect Dwight's wrists from visible markings and abrasions. I mean, let's say in a scenario where law enforcement might come and visit him in his house, or even if he just goes to work in the office, should his colleagues or law enforcement see visible abrasions around his wrists, this would raise too many questions. So in order to prevent any of these questions arising and also prevent injury to himself, Dwight wears the wristbands, wraps the cord around his wrists, and then strangles his victims. Now, regarding the sweatpants, I can't say there's anything particularly special about the sweatpants, but I guess they seem to be comfortable. I don't think they hinder Dwight's maneuverability, and they would allow Dwight to be comfortable and maneuverable whilst he's picking his next victim. Next is the World Anime Expo t-shirt, and we're given a couple of clues in the episode around this t-shirt. Firstly, in the episode, Dwight wants the t-shirt off.
All right, you guys.
Okay, we'll be skins.
Come on, Dwight.
What? Should I on or off?
On. Just put it on.
You sure?
Yes.
He tries to encourage a skins team, basically a team that has their t-shirts off, which would allow him to take the t-shirt off. What this tells me is Dwight's quite paranoid about this t-shirt. Why? This t-shirt is highly identifiable. I think there is a very strong possibility that we're actually seeing an outfit that Dwight wore in an actual murder, in an actual strangling. Right, so let's just say by the off chance somebody did see him running from the scene, the most identifiable element of this outfit is this t-shirt. It's colorful, it's bright, it's strange, it's weird. Out of everything that would stick in a witness's mind, it's this t-shirt. And on top of that, we actually have the cameras filming the basketball game. So Dwight wants the t-shirt off. This is why he's encouraging a skins team. He wants it off. He doesn't want any attention brought to his t-shirt. Now, the last element of this outfit is the leather boots. Now, these boots seem entirely consistent with the sort of boots Dwight would actually wear on a day-to-day basis. They don't look like basketball shoes, right? They seem to very much be just a standard pair of leather boots. So I guess the first thing to observe is it's not consistent with an accurate basketball outfit. It's wholly consistent with the type of shoe that Dwight would wear on a day-to-day basis. But I do actually suspect that these shoes could be a pair of RA Model 1 mil-spec tactical boots. Now, if you're not familiar with the RA Model 1 mil-spec tactical boot, I've posted a video here on YouTube that briefly touches on this boot, and I provide my reasons why I believe this boot is that model. Now, guys, when we look at the entire outfit, what we have here is an outfit that is completely consistent with the modus operandi of a professional strangler. He's unable to explain his possession of this bag and its contents on site without prior knowledge of the game. Michael kept the game a secret from Dwight because of what happened at Packer's pickup game. Dwight was not meant to play that day, and not only was he not meant to play, he was not meant to know. It was kept a secret from him. Michael made a concerted effort to keep it a secret from Dwight. So Dwight finds out about the game that morning and tries to put together a makeshift basketball outfit from what he had available on site and in his vehicle. Now, the question for us guys, having known the secret sign in the intro, having known where the clues lead us, having known that Dwight didn't know about the game, having now known that the contents of the bag are highly suspicious, the question is very, very simple. Why does Dwight Schrute have this gear when he didn't know about the game? And the answer, Kimosabi, is simple. Because Dwight Schrute is the Scranton Strangler. Please proceed to part 2 of Strangler Revealed, where we cover the tie flip and the role of symbolism, motif, and theme in The Office. Don't forget to subscribe, turn on notifications, and join the Anti-Strangling Task Force on Patreon for exclusive episode analysis.